I lost weight before my sister's wedding. My family acts like I committed a crime or something. Look, I was overweight my whole life. Like really overweight. I'm talking about the kind where you avoid cameras at family events, and people always feel the need to comment on what you're eating. For years, I tried every diet you can think of. Nothing stuck. Then about a year and a half ago, something just clicked. I started walking more, stopped eating junk every night, drank actual water instead of soda. Normal stuff. The weight started coming off slowly at first, then faster. I lost around 90 lbs total. Here's the thing, though. I live like 6 hours away from my family. We don't really text much, and I barely use Instagram or anything. So, they had no idea what I looked like now. I mentioned once or twice that I was eating better. But that's it. Honestly, I didn't want to make a big deal about it because every other time I tried losing weight, I failed. I didn't need my mom asking me every week how it was going or my aunt making comments at Thanksgiving. My sister got engaged last year. I was genuinely happy for her. She's marrying this guy who's actually pretty cool and they seem good together. The wedding got delayed a few times because of venue issues or something, so it ended up being scheduled for early this month. Since I haven't seen everyone in forever, I figured I'd come home 2 weeks early to help with wedding stuff and just hang out. I showed up at my parents' house on a Tuesday afternoon. My mom opened the door and her jaw literally dropped. She just stared at me for like 10 seconds before yelling for my dad. He came over, looked confused, then said, "Oh, wow. Honey, you look so different." It was awkward, but fine. Then my sister walked in from the kitchen. She stopped dead in her tracks. Her face went from confused to angry in about 2 seconds. She didn't say hi. She didn't hug me. She just goes, "Are you serious right now?" I had no idea what she meant. I asked her what was wrong, and she said, "You couldn't have waited until after my wedding to do this." I still didn't get it. I asked her to explain, and she literally shouted, "You lost all this weight right before my wedding to make me look bad." I was so confused. I told her I'd been losing weight for over a year, and it had nothing to do with her wedding. She wasn't hearing it. She said I was trying to steal attention and make her feel fat. For the record, my sister looks completely fine. She's gained maybe 15 or 20 lbs since she got engaged, but it's not even that noticeable. She still looks like herself, but apparently this is the first time in our entire lives that I've weighed less than her, and she couldn't handle it. My parents immediately jumped in on her side. My mom said I should have warned them that I looked so different. My dad said it was inconsiderate timing. I tried explaining again that I didn't plan this around her wedding. I didn't even know she'd gained weight, but my sister started crying, saying I was ruining everything and that everyone at the wedding would compare us. She said people would whisper about how the bride's sister looked better than her. It got worse over the next few days. My sister's bridesmaids came over for a dress fitting, and when they saw me, one of them made a comment like, "Wow, you look amazing." My sister completely lost it. She said I was doing this on purpose, showing up early just to get attention before her big day. She even suggested I shouldn't come to some of the pre-wedding events because my presence was stressing her out. My mom pulled me aside later and said maybe I should wear something less flattering to the wedding. Something that wouldn't draw attention. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her if she was seriously asking me to hide the fact that I'm healthier now, and she said it wasn't about that. It was about being sensitive to my sister's feelings. My dad agreed. He said weddings are emotional and I should just try to keep the peace. I told them I wasn't going to apologize for losing weight. I didn't do anything wrong. I worked hard for over a year to get healthy, and I wasn't going to feel bad about it just because my sister was insecure. That made things even worse. My sister stopped talking to me completely. Story 2. My wife's father, who also happened to be my CEO, publicly tore up my $2.8 million contract and laughed. "This is embarrassing. You'll never make it in this industry." I smiled, nodded, and quietly filed the one clause. He overlooked. What happened next brought the entire board to its knees and left him, begging me to stop. Chapter 1. The Contract and the Curtain Call. There's a moment at every wedding when time freezes, not for the couple, but for the people watching them. For me, it was when I stood at the altar with Sophia, her hand trembling in mine. Her father, William Easton, CEO of Easton Strategic Ventures, sat in the front row, grinning like he owned the room, because in a way he did. Not just the wedding, not just Sophia, he owned me too. Or so he thought. We met when I was an intern. I had no pedigree, no Ivy League polish, no family money, just raw talent and a will to work longer, harder, and smarter than anyone else. William noticed. He groomed me, promoted me, mentored me. By the time I turned 30, I was the youngest director in the firm, and I thought marrying Sophia would make it all real. That I had finally earned my place. But William never saw me as family, only familiar. The contract. A month before the wedding, I signed a contract worth $2.8 million over 3 years, a retention bonus, project equity stake, and deferred shares in the firm's new international arm. My name was printed in ink next to William's. The firm's biggest client portfolio had become my baby. I should have been celebrating. Instead, William pulled me aside the night before the wedding. "Don't let this go to your head," he said, swirling his scotch. "You got lucky. But one wrong move and it's gone. Just remember who made you." He said it with a smirk, a half laugh, but it stung. I'd built those accounts. I'd negotiated those deals. But to him, I was still the intern who dared date his daughter. I should have seen it coming. The curtain call. 3 months into our marriage, the boardroom looked more like a stage than a business meeting. My presentation on a $40 million acquisition deal was flawless. The numbers, the pitch, the legal path. Applause followed. Then William stood. With deliberate slowness, he pulled out my contract, page by page, and ripped it in front of the entire board. "This is embarrassing," he said. "I trusted you. And you failed. You're off the acquisition and off the payroll." Effective immediately. Laughter, silence, confusion. I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I just watched the man I once admired publicly erase me. Sophia wasn't even in the room. He thought he humiliated me. What he didn't realize was that contract had a clause, one he never read. And in that silence, as everyone stared at me, waiting for a meltdown, I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I was about to make him regret everything. Chapter 2. The Clause. They forgot. The contract William tore up was symbolic, but the real one, the binding legal version that lived in the company servers, signed, time-stamped, and archived by the firm's legal team. And buried inside that document on page 42 in section 9.4c was a clause I'd spent 3 months negotiating in silence. In the event of unjustified termination without formal board review, all active equity holdings and intellectual property contributions revert to the contracted party at full vesting value, and confidentiality restrictions are rendered null. William had signed it. So had the board. No one read it closely. Why would they? I was family. I was harmless. I was just the kid from nowhere who lucked into the big leagues. But I knew one thing they didn't. I wasn't going to be anyone's pawn anymore. The data he didn't own. Months before that fateful meeting, I'd built a proprietary internal model, a data architecture tool that streamlined multi-client portfolios, ran risk predictions, and helped the firm land their 2 biggest overseas clients. I coded it in my name. I registered the model externally under a private LLC. That clause. It gave ownership back to me the moment William terminated me without due process. They laughed when I left the boardroom empty-handed. But the next morning, when the firm's overseas client dashboard suddenly locked out and the project files went offline, I got a call from the CTO, then from the legal department, then from William himself. The first call, "William, what the hell are you doing? Me executing my rights under clause 9.4c. You terminated me without protocol. You forfeited access. William, you're bluffing. That clause doesn't even me. It's been verified. The IP is mine. The platform is mine. The equity mine, too. You can check with LegalClick." I knew what was coming. He'd try to spin it, try to claw it back, threaten litigation, but it was too late. The storm begins. By noon, 3 of the firm's largest international partners had paused operations. By the next day, 2 withdrew altogether, citing data security and trust violations. A week later, the board called an emergency meeting without William. Because the more they dug, the more they realized William had acted unilaterally, violated protocol, and destroyed a $40 million deal because of ego. And while he thought I was bleeding, I was preparing my next move. Chapter 3. The Proxy He Didn't See Coming. The emergency board meeting was off-calendar, private, and tense. They called it damage control. But behind closed doors, it was a reckoning. I wasn't in the room, but my presence was everywhere. In the graphs showing investor withdrawal, in the collapsed projections, in the locked-up client systems they could no longer access. And yet William still thought he had time to salvage it until the proxy vote landed on his desk. The silent stakeholder. What William forgot or never cared to remember was that I wasn't just an employee, not just a son-in-law thrown a job. 2 years ago, when the company needed capital to enter the APAC market, I had invested quietly anonymously through a shell entity through a private fund. I owned 4.8% of the company, just under the threshold that required disclosure, not enough to trigger alarms, just enough to shift board influence when it mattered most. And when I exercised my proxy vote, I aligned with 3 other minority stakeholders who were fed up with William's arrogance, his unchecked ego, and the string of hushed HR complaints that mysteriously disappeared. Together, our combined voting power reached just over 51%. The email at 11:03 a.m., William received the formal motion. Subject Board Resolution 11B Executive Removal Consideration. A motion has been formally submitted for the immediate suspension of CEO William Redgrave pending internal investigation into the unilateral termination of a contractual stakeholder resulting in IP loss, client walkouts, and reputational harm. All proxy and direct votes will be counted at 4:00 p.m. He called my number 5 times that day. I didn't pick up the meeting. He couldn't control. At 4:17 p.m., the board logged the vote 843 against. William was suspended, removed from daily operations, placed under investigation, and while security escorted him from the executive floor, he barked his last threat. "You think this is over?" "I built this company," a junior board member replied coldly. "No, you inherited it. He built what you destroyed." The look on his daughter's face that night, my now estranged wife showed up at my apartment. Tears in her eyes, accusations on her lips, but no answers. "You planned this," she said. "You let it happen." I didn't argue. She stood in the doorway for a long time, realizing something, that the man she used to dismiss was never just an employee. That her father's downfall began the moment he tore up a contract in front of a room full of men and forgot the silent one with the pen. Chapter 4. The offer they couldn't believe. The board begged for a solution. Clients were walking. Developers were resigning. The tech stack that had made the company millions was now a legal limbo of frozen IP and licensing disputes. And William, exiled, humiliated, and under review, was nowhere near the room. But I was, wearing no tie, no title, just a folder in hand. They thought I came to gloat. Instead, I came to make them an offer. The folder, I placed it gently in the center of the polished glass table. No drama, no grandstanding, just facts. Inside was a new licensing proposal, clean, efficient, ironclad, to restore the IP I had authored while under contract. The same IP William illegally terminated when he tore up my agreement, but this time I wasn't offering it as an employee. I was offering it as a third-party vendor through my new private tech firm. Same product, same backend, but my terms, I said. No backdoor edits, no optional clauses, no arbitrary terminations. There was silence, then chaos. One board member scoffed. "This is extortion." I leaned in, calm. "No, this is what your CEO called embarrassing. I call it business, the buyout clause." That's when I slid forward the second page, the one that stopped their breath. An optional clause, a full buyout of their licensing rights, permanent exclusive use in exchange for a 9-figure deal. Not dollars equity. In short, I wasn't just selling them their salvation. I was offering to own them from the inside out. And here's the twist. If they refused, I'd license the product to their top competitor, who had already sent over a term sheet. The vote. Within the hour, a new vote passed. I was officially brought in as a strategic partner with a 17% stake and 2 board seats. Not a CEO, not an employee, but something far more powerful. The ghost in their system, the owner behind the curtain, the voicemail. That night, I received a voicemail from William. Just breathing at first, then 2 words. Please stop. He knew what I knew. This wasn't revenge driven by rage. It was justice by design. His downfall wasn't loud. It was surgical. He built an empire on arrogance. And I bought it with silence. Final chapter 5. The silence in the shareholder room. The annual shareholder meeting was supposed to be a celebration. New record profits, fresh investment rounds, a glowing PR campaign about adaptability and crisis. But behind the curtains, something else brewed. And everyone who had once mocked me now waited for me to speak. The very same room where William once tore up my contract and laughed, now buzzed with murmurs about the man who replaced him without ever wearing his title. The presentation. I walked to the stage, not with charts or a marketing deck, but with one sentence. This company was never broken by its systems. It was broken by its ego. I let that hang. No PowerPoint, no applause cues, just truth. Then I tapped the folder in my hand and the same kind William once discarded and opened it to page 1. This is the original contract that your former CEO deemed embarrassing. The same one that preserved our clients, our tech, and frankly your reputation's gasps, and then silence, the statement that broke him. At the end of the presentation, I turned to the board and to William, who now sat at the very back, not as a speaker, but as a shareholder with 0 influence. You didn't just lose a contract that day, I said, turning directly to him. You lost the one person in this company who never needed to be allowed to lead. He couldn't look at me. His daughter, my ex-wife, quietly got up and left. The vote that sealed it. The final formality was held at the end. A permanent revocation of William's voting rights due to violation of fiduciary duty and public embarrassment to the firm. The room raised hands unanimous. No one defended him, not one. And when the chair asked if I wanted to make a closing statement, I simply said, "Let the silence speak for itself." The aftermath and the legacy. Weeks later, an op-ed appeared in a top business magazine titled, "The Man Who Bought Back His Dignity, One Clause at a Time." I didn't give interviews, didn't write a tell-all. Instead, I focused on what mattered. Growing the tech I built with my own hands, running my own firm, one built on trust, not inheritance, and above all, walking into every room as the man they underestimated and now can't forget. Final line. They laughed when he walked out with nothing, but they stood in stunned silence when he came back with everything. Was this justice delivered? Or should the storm have gone deeper? Drop your verdict below. I see every comment. Like, if you believe silence can be power, and share this tale with someone who's been wronged. Subscribe to Revenge Exposed, where betrayal meets reckoning, and every quiet soul gets their roar. Masks always slip, secrets always surface, and revenge always has its hour. Stay sharp, stay unbroken.